The Warren County Bowling Green Planning Commission in order tonight, October 21st. Ms. Ramsey, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Commissioner Drain,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay, Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Unseld,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You have the minutes of our last meeting of October the 7th in your packet. Is there any questions? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert, Commissioner Drain, Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Unseld,
Abstain.
Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The minutes are approved as presented. We enter into our hearing tonight. Mr. Moore, if you would to administer the oath to our officials tonight.
I will, Chair Warren. I request that you order that the record include all statutory and regulatory provisions, the Commission's entire file for each application on tonight's docket, and the qualifications for each staff witness. And finally, I'd request that you administer the oath to those witnesses before we do the subdivision reviews. Please.
Y'all swear to tell the truth? Yes. Thank you very much. You have the subdivision and site development plans in your packets. Are there any questions? Hearing none, they are approved as submitted. Our first item tonight on our docket is 2021-14 DP John Pod. I hope I pronounced everybody's names right. John Pod, Constant Barbalos, Revocable Trust, Wendy Wicks, Samuel and April Mast, Yvonne Gold, Adam and Katie Kuzma, Kyle and Karen Roby, Jeff and Paula Metter, Lakeview Estate Homeowners Association, care of Kyle Roby, President, and Baker Page Joint Revocable Trust has filed an amendment to amend the General Development Plan conditions on tract of land containing approximately 24.72 acres located 0, 1,000, 1,010, 1,020, 1,030, 1,040, 1,050, 1,060, and 1,070 Edgewater Lane. These properties are zoned a planned unit development with the General Development Plan. So, Zach, you have...
Sir, thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-app on July 13th for the property you see outlined in, or properties you see outlined in yellow. The existing zoning is PUD with binding elements. The existing land use is residential and agriculture. And the future land use is agriculture. The current PUD zone is not consistent with the agriculture flume. However, the proposed changes to the development do not impact flume compliance since the subdivision is existing, and there are no proposed changes that would increase the density of the development. And it was rezoned to PUD in 2005. If you'll flip on to your, excuse me, let me go back. They're proposing to amend the development plan, like Chair Warren said, for 24.7287 acres, with the main purpose of the proposed application to amend the minimum rear setback, minimum side setback, and natural landscape buffer requirement to allow an existing non-conforming accessory structure to remain in its current location on the property located at 1060 Edgewater Lane. Now, if you flip onto your second page, you'll see our future land use map category for agriculture. And just below that, you'll see the site characteristics review. I can go over any of those you guys like, but I will call out the first box there for layout, lot size, and setbacks. That the layout of the existing development is Shown on the attached exhibit, that setbacks for the development will adhere to the standards outlined in the written concept and development plan conditions of the PUD. This includes a reduction of the rear and side setbacks for accessory structures to a minimum of 5 feet. And then down, if you'll look to your site design and compatibility review, we'll look at the surrounding density in particular. The proposed amendments to the development plan will not increase the allowable density. The current concept plan and binding elements allow for up to 10 homes, and the proposal actually reduces the number of homes to a maximum of 8 as they are currently constructed. Looking down to the building materials review, you may also note that the current binding elements require all residences have a minimum of 2,500 square feet with an exterior of at least 80% brick. And there is a requirement that all accessory buildings shall be constructed of the same building material as the primary residence. The applicants are proposing to remove those restrictions from the new development plan conditions because they currently exist as plat restrictions. If you'll flip over to the next page, under landscaping and screening, you'll see the existing accessory building at 1050 and 1060 Edgewater Lane encroaches in the required 25-foot rear landscape buffer, and the applicants are proposing to reduce that down to 5 feet. And you may note also under the proposed open space that the concept plan the applicant supplied calls for a minimum of 9 acres of open space, which is a reduction from the 13 total from the original plan. However, this does reflect what was shown on the graphic concept plan from the original application in 05. We can move on down with no area-specific policy review to the general development plan conditions. I will go over any of them in super detail if you like, but in the interest of time, I will just highlight the what's changing. They're striking condition 1 that the improvements on the property have adequate water supply to meet fire control, and replacing that with a first condition that says these amended development plan conditions are intended to, and upon adoption, shall fully repeal and replace the property's original binding elements and concept plan, which are of record in deed book page 910 and 197 to 204. Number 2 has to do with those residential lots, again, reducing that number from 10 to 8. If you'll look down, number 3 doesn't change to number 4, where the property will be developed with at least 30% open space and a 5-foot natural landscape buffer along the rear perimeter, which is a change from the 25-foot that was previously required. And that is shown on concept A, no longer B. And they also added the following language: that all natural vegetation and trees within the original 25-foot natural landscape buffer shall be maintained and preserved to the extent possible, and shall only be removed to prevent damage to property or to preserve other natural landscape, trees, vegetation within the original 25-foot buffer. Number 5 added the word natural in front of walking trail, so the property will be developed with a natural walking trail, and then around the small lake located on the property. And then they added with a small bridge, which I believe is existing out there now. They removed condition number 6 and 7, again, reference to the plat restriction reasoning that I mentioned earlier. Number 6 just changes, again, that reference from concept from Exhibit B to Exhibit A. Number 7 just removes the language to be established by the developer at the end. Number 8 strikes the condition that common open areas shall be maintained by the developer until 70% of the lots have been sold to third parties, and then that the maintenance of may be transferred to the Property Owners Association. And then it's replaced with number 8, that the common area shall be maintained by the Lakeview Homeowners Association. They struck condition number 9 regarding the property being developed with uniform mailboxes and street lighting, and that light poles would be constructed of metal, fiberglass, or composite material. And then they struck condition 10, which has to do with binding elements 6 and 7 becoming plat restrictions. There's also the narrative concept plan, and there's several amendments to that as well, and I'll go through it the same. The property has been developed on approximately 24.72 acres instead of 26.5, with a maximum of 8 lots instead of 10. The applicants struck the language struck the language be a gated community with, So it now just reads, it will have private streets, et cetera, et cetera. Then if you go under the elements of the concept plan, it references Exhibit A. They added that language to the end. Under the setbacks, so the development will require the following minimum setbacks for the primary residential structures, that the front setback will be 90 feet, the rear will be 75 feet, and the side will be 30 feet. But the applicants added the following language, that the development will require the following minimum setbacks for accessory structures, of which the front setback would also be 90 feet, but now the rear and side setback would be reduced to just 5 feet. On the next page, under density and open space, again, that talks about reducing from 10 to 8 residential units, and then that 26.5 to 24.72 acres, with an overall density of 0.32 dwelling units per acre instead of 2.65. They struck the language regarding lot sizes averaging between an acre and 1.5 acres, and added that, however, the residential lot size range of 1 to 2 acres is only applicable for the residential lots and not the open space lot, which consists of a lake and surrounding land of approximately 9 acres. And they changed that as well to that the development will have substantial open space of at least 9 acres instead of the 13, and again reference Exhibit A. They struck the section regarding design standards and architectural review. They struck just the portion of the title under community ties, where it just reads utilities now. If you go down to available for other community facilities, they struck the language regarding the Warren County school system currently having plans for an elementary school in the Plano area and a new one at Alvaton, and a new middle school and high school in the Rich Pond community, as I think all of those have been constructed. And then below that, under compliance with community requirements and comprehensive plan goals, again, they amend it from 10 to 8 residential lots, and change the language from the sketch plan to, again, reference Exhibit A. With that, Section 3.12.8 of the zoning ordinance states that amendments to an approved general development plan requires at least 75% of all property owners, and that the applicants have to supply some information to have that request approved. And they submitted the following narrative. It's lengthy, as you see there on that next page, and then it spills on to the next one after that. I won't read it, but I can go over any of it in detail if you guys would like. And the Planning Commission should determine if the argument included by the applicants addresses the criteria required to amend the general development plan, including those development plan conditions, again, as outlined in Section 3.12.8 of the zoning ordinance. Under the Focus 2030 category review, staff identified 11 items, 3 of which comply, 8 of which are at the Planning Commission determination. With that, I will also go over any of them you like, but I think we've touched on them quite a bit to this point. And with that, we can flip back to the points to consider. On the first page, point 1, that the current PUD zone is not consistent with the agriculture flume category. However, the proposed changes to the development plan do not impact flume compliance, since the subdivision is existing and there are no changes proposed that would increase the density of the current development. Number 2, that the proposed development complies with a majority of the site characteristics review criteria and a majority of the criteria for site design. And then there's a third one lingering on the second page, that the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development plan amendment, most notably the reductions in the minimums of the rear setback, side setback, and natural landscape buffer, is compatible with the surrounding area, and if the applicants address the findings required to amend the general development plan. That's all I have for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Jones. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Jones? Would you share a little bit what this is about?
If we can go back to the aerial here, you might be able to see it. It's kind of towards that top corner. I don't know where the laser pointer, Ben can hit me with the assist there, but effectively the applicants built that accessory structure that encroached upon those rear and side setbacks, and then the natural landscape buffer, which prompted this. And then most of the rest of that is that of all of the changes are different cleanup items and things that staff suggested.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they got the 75% and signatures and everything.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, one last question, I guess, is That structure appears to cross two property lines.
Indeed, it does.
Am I mistaken about that?
Nope, you've got it. The applicants, Mr. Roby and Kuzma, I think they are the two property owners there. I'll let them touch a little more on it, but I think they've agreed to move the property line so that accessory structure would all be, I think it's on Mr. Roby's property,
So,
and they'll have to replat it as well.
so do I understand you to say that that property line is going to be changed?
Yes, it's going to have to be moved slightly to tweak around the barn, I believe, to make sure it's hitting all of those setbacks.
Any other questions for Mr. Jones? Is the applicant here? Would have any additional comments to Mr. Jones' report?
At this time, Commissioner
Would
Warren,
you,
thank
would you state your name, please?
Kyle Roby.
Address?
Professional address is 1101 College Street here in Bowling Green. Personal residence
You
is...
swear to tell the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roby.
As Mr. Volkert, I think, asked, all of the neighbors within the Lakeview Estates subdivision have signed off on this. I've met with the surrounding property owners and discussed this with them in detail. From Mark Chapman, who is a farmer behind my property, as well as the other farmers around. I've spoken with all of them. They are all on board. No one has any objection to this, so we would ask that you all approve our motion to amend the development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Roby. Any questions for Mr. Roby? Thank you, sir. Is there any opposition to this request in the audience tonight? Hearing none, I would call for a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the proposed general development plan amendment, docket number 2021-14DP, based upon the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing. The proposed general development plan amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan, as demonstrated by its compliance and with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Further, I also find that there have been major changes of economic, physical, or social nature within the area of the property in question, and I request that the findings of fact and recommendation include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Unseld,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved, and it's planning and zoning final action. So thank you all for being here tonight. Our second item tonight is 2021-15DP Radcliffe Cheetah LLC, care of Jeffrey Fields, have filed an application to amend the general development plan conditions on tracts of land containing approximately 6.37 acres located at 1823, 1831, and 1847 Cave Mill Road and 2311 Cave Mill Station Boulevard. These properties own highway business with the general development plan. Ms. Hurd?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application conference on August 3rd for the properties outlined in yellow fronting Cave Mill Road, and a couple of properties are also located on Cave Mill Station Boulevard. The applicants have proposed to amend the development plan conditions this evening with the main purpose of amending the restrictions for signage, specifically that limit signage to 100 square feet, wall signage that is, per tenant. And if approved, the applicants would like to just defer to the minimum requirements outlined in the zoning ordinance, which permits wall signage up to 100 square feet or 10% of each facade, whichever is greater, for a single tenant. And then for multi-tenant buildings, wall signage is limited to 100 square feet or 10% of the facade of the tenant space where the signage is located, whichever is less. The current zoning is highway business, and the property was rezoned to highway business in 2008. This may look familiar because the development plan was amended in 2020 as well, back in January. The future land use, the current land use is commercial, with the future land use designation listed as mixed use residential. The category description for this future land use designation is on page 2 for your reference. And while the current HB zone is not listed as potentially compatible zoning in the mixed use residential future land use category, The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed change to the development plan conditions impacts compliance with the future land use map and if the development will remain compatible with the surrounding area. This just outlines the boundary of all properties within the proposed development plan amendment. And this is a rendering of the proposed signage. I guess I should point out that would be for this lot here. There's a car wash proposed for this lot. I believe it's actually under construction, if not close to complete. And so the signage is what has essentially brought this application before you this evening, and the applicants may want to speak a little bit more about that in a second. Looking at the layout, lot sizes, and setbacks, there are no changes relating to the layout, lot sizes, or setbacks for any of the properties within the development. And then we'll jump down to the site design and compatibility review, and we've added a section in the staff report that touches on surrounding signage. It outlines the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance for wall signage, and then based on recent permits in the area for wall signage, we went ahead and included some of those square footages for surrounding properties just for reference. And the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed amendment to increase the allowable square footage for wall signage is compatible with signage in the surrounding area. Looking at the proposed changes, they're shown in bold. The first two are proposed to be removed, or sorry, number 1 and 3 are proposed to be removed because those are already requirements by ordinance. The first portion of number 2 is proposed to be removed. Essentially, it's no longer relevant to the development plan. If we go back to the zoning map, the original zone change boundary encompassed a larger portion than what's left today. A lot of the land has been rezoned to multifamily in the last several years, and so that's more of a housekeeping item to remove the first part of what would now be number 2. The lot coverage maximum at 80% would still remain as is. Then if we look on page 4, number 10, again, that is the main reason for this application. Currently, wall signage is limited to 100 square feet per tenant. When this was originally rezoned, it was envisioned as more of a large shopping center development where there would be multiple tenants in the same building. And so now that parcels have developed with individual buildings, under the current restrictions, each building would be limited to 100 square feet of wall signage for the entire building. So they're proposing, again, to just remove that and defer to the zoning ordinance requirements, which, again, for an individual tenant would be 10% of the facade, of each facade, or 100 square feet, whichever is greater. And then number 12 is proposed to be removed, but it is also already required. As Zach mentioned in the previous application, section 312.8 of the zoning ordinance outlines the requirements to amend a development plan. And the applicants included the narrative at the bottom of page 4 that spills onto page 5. That is there for your reference. The staff evaluated 3 items from the Focus 2030 category review. And if we look, there first are LU 1.1.1 and 1.1.2. which look at consistency with the future land use map, and then LU 1.1.3, which evaluates whether or not the proposed changes are compatible with the surrounding area. With that, I will jump back to the points to consider on page 1. The first, again, deals with the future land use map compliance. Second, the proposed development complies with the applicable criteria addressed in the site characteristics review. And last, the proposed general development plan amendment complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design. Compatibility of the proposed changes to the development plan, including an increase in permitted sign face area for wall signage, should be determined by the Planning Commission. I think that is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Hurt?
So, Rachel, do I understand correctly that at 144.75, they're still well below the 10% threshold?
Correct, because it's based on the size of the facade. They've included other elevations also, and we did go through and verify that each of the facades with the proposed wall signage would be within the limits of the zoning ordinance requirements if the amendment is approved tonight, to just remove the 100 square foot maximum altogether.
Those others that you provided for reference, Dollar General, 5-star, et cetera, those are using similar calculations?
Yes, those were under the 10% or 100 square feet, whichever is greater, so.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Any other questions for Ms. Hurd?
Oh, number 3. So that just means that if we go back to the aerial view, this would have been before any development occurred at all. So when we had a clean slate and all of the land was vacant, it just meant then that there would be internal travel ways that interconnect. So you can kind of see here that if you were to pull into the Dollar General off of Cave Mill, you can still kind of traverse across the frontage of all the properties just to provide better interconnectivity between parcels to prevent people from having to go back on Cave Mill Road and then back in.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you, Ms. Hurt. Does the applicant have anything they would like to add?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience is in opposition to this request? Hearing no opposition, I would call for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed general development plan amendment docket number 2021-15 DP. Based on the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed general development plan amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Further, I also find that there has been major change in economic, physical, and social nature within the area of the property in question. I request the findings of fact and recommendation include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at the public hearing.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Unseld,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The motion is approved. Planning and zoning final action. Our next item is item number 3, 2021-58Z County Twin Bridges Holding, care of, hope I pronounce this right, Narkarana Patel, has filed an application to rezone tracts of land containing approximately 21.42 acres located at 0 and 8039 Twin Bridges Road from agriculture to RS1A single-family residential with a general development plan. And so, Ms. Hurt, back up again.
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application conference on July 28th for the properties you just outlined, located on Twin Bridges Road. The applicants are proposing to rezone the property to RS1A to develop a maximum of 56 residential lots. The current zoning is agriculture. The current use is agriculture and vacant. And the future land use designation for the property is low-density residential. This future land use designation comprises areas designated for single-family detached development and attached single-family development, including twin homes, where each unit is platted on its own lot with gross densities ranging from 0 to 4.5 dwelling units per acre. Higher densities may be possible with a conservation-style development as permitted by the zoning ordinance. Looking at the proposed lot layout, this was the preliminary development plan that was submitted with the rezoning application. If approved, setbacks, lot size, and lot width will adhere to the RS1A standards set forth in the zoning ordinance. Touching on the transportation infrastructure, we'll just note that the proposed development would have access to Twin Bridges Road, with access then being to Scottsville Road. There's also Collett Bridge Road that runs to the rear portion of the development here. No access is proposed to Collett Bridge Road as part of this application. However, there is a stub street proposed to the property to the north, and that would be in compliance with the subdivision regulations. Touching on the natural features, we have noted that there are known sinkholes in the vicinity. and that there are a handful of trees that surround the existing residence. Jumping down to site design and compatibility review, I'll reference the density map that's in your packet. Densities on this map and in the surrounding area range from 0.32 to 3.73 dwelling units per acre.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Slow down.
Sure.
Speak up.
Okay, I'll slow it down, no problem. So surrounding density, we'll look at the density map here. Densities on this map and in the surrounding area range from 0.32 to 3.73 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density for this development is 2.61 dwelling units per acre. If we look at the surrounding architectural features, staff has noted that the majority of the surrounding area is comprised of 1- and 2-story single-family homes, as well as 2-story agricultural and public buildings. Minimum home sizes for existing and approved residential developments in the vicinity include, for Drakes Creek Acres, 1,800 square feet, September Lakes, 2,400 square feet. In this development, all garage entries shall be side or rear loaded. In Drakes Ridge, the minimum home size is 2,100 square feet with a minimum 2-car garage to be side or rear facing. For Poplar Grove, the minimum home size is 2,400 square feet. All garage entries shall be side or rear loaded. And for Dove Point, which I think is actually labeled as Bates Farm, this green shaded property, the minimum home size is 1,200 square feet with at least a 1-car attached garage. Looking at the building materials review, required building materials for primary structures within existing and approved residential developments in the area include, for Drakes Creek Acres, 60% brick or stone with a brick requirement for accessory buildings. For September Lakes, vinyl is only permitted for soffits and undersides of porches with detached structures to be constructed of the same material as the primary structure. For Drakes Ridge, there's a minimum requirement for 75% brick or stone. For Poplar Grove, vinyl is permitted only in soffits and undersides of porches. And for Dove Point, vinyl is only allowed in soffits. Looking at building orientation, the proposed residences will face the new internal streets. The applicants agreed to screen side and rear facing facades from Scottsville Road with a 10-foot landscape buffer that contains a minimum of 6 evergreen trees and 3 deciduous trees per 100 linear feet. Under proposed open space, the RS1A zone allows a maximum of 50% lot coverage, meaning 50% of each lot will remain as open space. The applicant has also agreed to provide a minimum of 0.15 acres of open space for the overall development. That's kind of proposed on this preliminary development plan here in that hatched area that says, it's hard to read on the screen, but that does say open space. Under connectivity, I had mentioned earlier that there will be no access to Collett Bridge Road and that there is a proposed stub street to the north. Looking at area-specific policy review, this is located within the boundary of the Scottsville Road Corridor Study. There are 4 applicable policies or recommendations from this plan. The first is a requirement that all development visible from Scottsville Road be designed in a way to appear to face Scottsville Road, regardless of the location of the driveway access or parking. And as I'd mentioned earlier, the homes are proposed to face the internal streets, so the development does not comply with this recommendation. However, there are those screening requirements that the applicant has implemented, and those are listed in Development Plan Condition number 16. Number 2, a requirement that all new residential development be served by internal streets, which would limit the potential for curb cuts along Scottsville Road. And Development Plan Condition 7 requires that the development be served by internal streets, and so the proposal complies with this recommendation. Number 3, a building material requirement for both residential and non-residential development for facades facing Scottsville Road and possibly all roadways. And Development Plan Condition 3 requires that all residences and other structures consist of brick, stone, drive-it, cement-based siding, engineered wood siding, man-made stone or other modern masonry material. Brick, stone, or man-made stone shall extend to grade for residences constructed with siding materials. Vinyl material is permitted in soffits and undersides of porches. The proposal complies with this recommendation. And number 4, an open space or green space requirement. And the applicant, again, is agreeing to that open space, and that is actually listed in Development Plan Condition number 9 and as shown on this concept plan. So the proposal may comply with this recommendation. Next, looking at the development plan conditions, there are 19. Number 1 states that the maximum number of lots shall be 56. Number 2, each residence within the development shall have a minimum of 1,800 square feet of heated and cooled space, exclusive of garages and porches, with the first floor having a minimum of 1,200 square feet. Number 3 outlines the building materials that I just listed in the policy review section, so I'm not going to read through those again. Number 4, each residence shall have a minimum of an attached two-car garage. Number 5, all accessory or detached structures shall complement the material used in the primary structure. All structures, including principal and accessory, and plot plans shall be approved by the developer or its assigns the HOA when active. Number 6, all driveways shall be constructed of concrete and or brick pavers. Number 7, access to the development shall be limited to an internal street off Twin Bridges Road. Subdivision entrance shall be situated north of the KYTC entrance to Twin Bridges Road at its intersection with Scottsville Road. Number 8, the developer shall establish a homeowners association for the subject property. All lot owners within the property shall be required to join and participate financially in the homeowners association. Number 9, the developer shall provide 0.15 acres of open space in the development. The developer shall be responsible for maintaining all common open spaces until at least 60% of the lots have been developed and sold to third parties. At that time, the developer may transfer ownership and maintenance responsibility to the homeowners association. 10, all trash and recycling receptacles shall be kept hidden from street view with the exception of collection days and the night preceding collection days. Number 11, mailboxes shall be in a cluster-style mailbox system approved by the developer. 12, outdoor parking of trailers, campers, boats, and recreational vehicles shall be prohibited. 13, all new internal utility lines shall be located underground, with the exception of the main service lines that may remain above ground per the requirements of utility providers. 14, any propane gas tanks installed within the development shall be installed underground. 15, developer will install uniform street lighting with poles of fiberglass, composite material, or metal. 16, homes with side or rear facades oriented towards Scottsville Road shall be screened from said roadway by construction of a 10-foot wide landscape buffer with 6 evergreen and 3 deciduous trees per 100 linear feet. 17, developers shall maintain all mature and healthy trees not located within building envelopes or areas required for vehicular traffic or parking. 18, the developer will properly address any sinkholes on the property. Any sinkholes shall be repaired to an engineered standard approved by the Warren County Public Works Department prior to construction or repair above said sinkhole. And then number 19 would convert development plan conditions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, and 14 to plat restrictions once a plat is recorded. And I think that is all for the development plan conditions. At the bottom of page 4, we have a reference to the traffic impact study requirements. Those are outlined in section 3.1.4 of the zoning ordinance. A traffic impact study was not required by the transportation agencies. In this case, that would be the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and Warren County Public Works Department in lieu of the following improvements. First, that this was from Warren County Public Works, that a stub street would be required to the north, which is what's shown on this plan, unless an entrance to Collett Bridge Road is public, which there's no entrance proposed to Collett Bridge Road. It's actually prohibited by the development plan conditions. So if they were to propose to connect, which they're not, the road was supposed to be widened to 18 feet all the way out to Twin Bridges Road. But again, since there's no access proposed, that's essentially not required. But the subdivision entrance on Twin Bridges Road will have to be coordinated with and approved by the Warren County Public Works Department, and individual lots shall only have access to internal streets. And then from KYTC, they required that the subdivision entrance be situated north of the KYTC entrance, which is located down here on the concept, to Twin Bridges Road at its intersection with Scottsville Road. So the applicant limited access to the development to an internal street off Twin Bridges Road, again in Development Plan Condition 7, and they did situate the entrance north of the KYTC entrance as requested by Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and have provided a stub street to the property to the north. So therefore the application complies with the traffic impact study requirements of the zoning ordinance. Looking at the Focus 2030 category review from the comprehensive plan, the staff evaluated 19 items. We found 9 of those items to be in compliance. There are 10 items that are up to the Planning Commission to determine compliance. The first of those being LU 1.1.3, which looks at compatibility. Next, LU 2 and LU 2.1, which evaluate quality of development and character of the area. Next, we have LU 2.1.1, which relates to open space. And on page 6, LU 252, which looks at infill development. Jumping down to HN1 and HN1.3, which evaluate character, pattern of development, and impact on existing neighborhoods. Next, LU 2.8, which relates to the Scottsville Road corridor study recommendations that we looked at on page 3. And last, HN 2.1 and HN 4, which address suitability of the proposed housing type and housing options. With that, I will jump back to page 1, and we will finish the staff report with the points to consider. First, the proposed RS1A zone complies with the low-density future land use category. Second, the proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria. Third, the proposed development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and meets the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance. And finally, compatibility should be determined by the Planning Commission. That is all for the staff report, but I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Commissioners, any questions for Rachel?
Rachel, could we revisit the density map just for a moment?
Sir.
And let's see, refresh my memory. What's the density proposed for this development?
Proposed density is 2.61.
All right. And so we got Bates Farm at 3.73. Is it fair to say that some of these are pre-sewer and some of them are post-sewer? Because I see a bit of a disparity there.
If we go back to the zoning map, that's kind of a good indicator of those pre-sewer developments. The RE or ag zone properties would have been developed before sewer was available in the area, but then you'll see Drake's Ridge across the street, and then as we move on down the way here, that's when we jump down to Poplar. That's Poplar Grove, right? Yeah. And those are RS subdivisions or residential on sewer. That's the S designation. And so it would be fair to say that the RS zone properties were rezoned and developed after sewer was available in the area.
What was the first sewer property there? Was it Poplar Grove?
I think it was Drake's Ridge.
Drake's Ridge, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Any other questions for Ms. Hurt? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here or a spokesperson for the applicant, please?
Chairman David Broderick, and I represent the applicant in this regard, and we'll be here to answer any questions that you want.
Mr. Broderick, let's go through it. Your address?
David Broderick, 921 College Street, 2819 Ewing Bend Drive, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Swear to tell the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you.
This application, and thank you, Rachel and Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, is a very nice application in design. It is compatible with other structures in the area. It's single-family residential. It's flume compliant. As you can tell, the changes that have taken place simply from a compatibility point of view have been the advent of the sewer in the area. Some of the houses were built before it was there. The sewer did certainly make changes. Mr. Graham, that was an excellent question to ask, and if you went back up the road a little bit, up the hill, up past Phil Moore Park, you have the Upton Farms, which came in about the same time as the sewer came through, and it's 2.47 in terms of its density. Our position is, and I think It is low-density residential. It is low-density residential. It is probably halfway through the criteria on it. It's in the median area for that. We did some things that I think are nice. I like the concrete drives. I like concrete drive or pavers, the two-car garages. The only thing that we did differently from the Scottsville Road corridor plan is in terms of the placement of the houses, because we have access only by internal streets to a way to place it, we decided to put a 10-foot buffer in, which is a large buffer and a nice buffer that I believe comports with the idea and the purpose of why you would place the houses the way you did. The density, therefore, we believe is consistent and compatible with the area as well as the design of the houses. Now, some of the houses in the area, as Rachel pointed out to you, have some different restrictions, but the square footages that we have are 1,800 square feet. There'll be single-family residence. It will be stone or other material, no vinyl except for soffits or under porches of that nature. Everything will be developed down to ground level. In terms of the foundation exposure, and I know, Mr. Graham, you usually ask that question, so I wanted to take care of that before we got started on things, so there's no split face issues about that. It will be the same material, which I think is also another final and nice touch on this. If you look at the existing zoning in the area, if you look at the existing development on the area, clearly we answer the question of compatibility, because this is consistent with the development that's taken place in recent times there. These houses do help the neighborhood. The size that they're talking about will put us in a range of anywhere from 250, 275 to 300 plus in terms of the type houses that would go in. The access, I know there would be some concern about the College Bridge Road. We don't want access to College Bridge Road. The reason there's a stub street is we're required to put a stub street in. That's the only reason that's there. I don't want someone to think we're coming back to do that, because we don't want to do that. But that, and I think Rachel made that clear in her report to you. So at this point, there's only one access from our property to what I call the Scottsville Road that used to be, now it's Twin Bridges Road. So we have no traffic issues. We believe, as the staff have pointed out, that we have complied with, obviously it's flume compliant. Obviously it's compatible with the majority, if not even more than the majority, of all the site characteristics in the area. The general development plan meets at least the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinances, if not all of them, and it is compatible. With that, we're welcome the commission to ask us any questions they might have at all. I have an engineer here with us. I have Nick Patel, who's here with us, who is the applicant. Any questions you have, we're welcome to answer them at this time.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Broderick?
Mr. Broderick, does the applicant intend to extend the buffer, the 10-foot landscaping buffer, the entire length of that side of Scottsville Road?
Yes, sir. Okay. Absolutely. Clearly, if we didn't make that clear, all of the Scottsville Road side.
Wasn't noted in here, and that's why I asked. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Broderick, as we do these over a period of time, some questions come up a lot. And so one of those questions, I assume, will be regarding drainage. And I notice on our concept plan, just for those in the audience, there is no retention basin depicted. Would it be accurate to say that this is a concept plan and that it is pre-engineering, and that if you were to get this project approved, it would still have to go through the engineering phase and would be subject to all of the drainage criteria and drainage basins, and it could even remove the number of lots? Is all of that accurate?
That's absolutely accurate. We hopefully will get 56 lots, as we've talked. This is land I'm familiar with. One of the first jobs I ever had was with Bobby Farley, who owns this property. And I've driven by it all my life. I drove by it today just to look and see if I could see any sinkholes. I don't see any, but the report and engineering clearly indicates there's some in the area. Yes, we may well lose a number of lots depending on what happens when we get to that development point of view. That's absolutely correct.
And so, so make one last argument for me here. Clearly, this development anticipates the access to sewer. Without a doubt, there are at least someone living in this neighborhood that's on a large lot and may come to the microphone tonight and say, well, gosh, I expected the entire neighborhood to be a large lot, never to be developed. How would you address that?
Well, first I would address it from the point of view that what we're proposing to develop is consistent with development that's already taken place. Example, just recently you approved the Bates property, and which is much more dense than ours is. It is something that's needed. It does not change the characteristic of the area as it's developed at this point in time. If you ask me why the changes took place, I would tell you sewer changed a lot. The 4-lane on Scottsville Road changed a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Broderick? Thank you, Commissioner Graham. Thank you, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. In our audience tonight, we have many citizens here. Show of hands of who is in opposition to this, please. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. And do you all have one spokesperson for this group? Okay. Well, Mr. Baker, if you'll come to the microphone, please, sir, and we will swear you in.
Sir.
Name and address.
Matt Baker, 911 College Street, Suite 200. Residential is 1324 Scottsville Road.
Baker, you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
And we will ask that, Mr. Baker, that everybody has 3 minutes to express their opinions. The representative has 5 minutes. So thank you, Mr. Baker.
I think I can maybe get it done in half that, so we'll see. Members of the commission, we respectfully submit that this proposed zone change is simply not compatible, and for a number of reasons. I, like Mr. Broderick, have driven up and down Scottsville Road for 30 or 40 years now, and the Farley house sits up on a hill. We submitted some pictures of that, if you don't mind. I'm kind of a Luddite. I would just mess it up. There we go. That photograph is actually taken from the front of the Farley house, and as you can see, there's a fairly significant downhill grade as it goes to Twin Bridges and the Scottsville Road, and then back uphill across the street. So we would submit that there, topographically speaking, there is no possible way to buffer those houses that are down toward Twin Bridges Road. Simply can't be buffered because, well, unless you're able to put in vegetation, I don't want to overstate, but redwoods, California redwoods would buffer it, but nothing short of that, and all of those houses will not front on Scottsville Road as per the development plan. And so as it relates to the Scottsville Road corridor study, this development is out of compliance and simply can't be brought into compliance as planned, as drafted, and with the buffer that they propose. The stub street that is drawn in, I would note that it stubs into Joe Gene Scott's front yard. And the 0.15 acres of open space that is depicted in the drawing is also out of compliance with LU 2.11. With regard to density, the real estate, the homes situated to the north, the south, the east, and the west of this proposed development are all of a markedly lower development than this is. They're proposing 2.61 units per acre. Of course, Ms. Scott lives on the farm next door. The density immediately across the street is 0.32 units per acre and 0.68 units per acre. Next door is on Collett Bridge is 0.83 units per acre. So as much as 3 to 6 times the density in this proposed development. If you go to the category review, members of the commission, you're asked to determine if this will result in compatible infill development. We believe the answer to that is a resounding no. If the infill project will maintain or improve the existing character and pattern of development in the area or strengthen existing neighborhoods, the answer is no. The Planning Commission should determine if this development comports with the Scottsville Road Corridor Study. It cannot and it does not. And if the proposed residences are believed to enhance the array of housing options in the area. And we believe that is a no. We believe what's compatible is over in September Lakes, which is depicted in that photograph. What this will essentially do is put my client's, her property line is, I'd say, 15 to 18 feet from this proposed development, and Joe Gene Scott vehemently objects, strenuously objects to the passage of this proposed zone change. She'd like to be heard on that, if she could, please.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Any questions for Mr. Baker? So we've heard from Mr. Baker representing the, oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Baker, would you come back up? So you made an eloquent argument, and I thank you for that. If I may, could I go through a few of the things that you have pointed out, just so that I can make sure that I understand correctly? So, of course, directly across the street is indeed September Lakes, but it was pre-sewer. Just to the right of September Lakes is a subdivision that was developed post-sewer, if I'm not correct, if I'm correct, right? So this picture is straight across the street, but if we turn to 45 degree, we're going to see a different group of homes, correct?
Further down.
It is, and I drove out there yesterday, and these pictures are less than 24 hours old. I think the development you're speaking of is not in the line of sight or visible at all.
So it's not in line of sight.
It's much further down.
And so the other The other thing that you, the other concern that you voiced was, I think, the size of the homes. Is that correct?
Not so much the size, but the density.
You asked about the, I think you indicated that there was, in your view, no way to buffer because of the topography?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? So is the adjoining property on Collett View, does it have the same topography?
Over on the, over by the creek?
So if we're looking at this photo that's in front of us, if I understand correctly, Collett View is to our right? Or is it Collett Bridge? Yes.
Let me see if I can. Farley House essentially sits on top of the hill.
Okay, so if we go to this aerial,
Yes, sir.
there appears to be a development just to the, so there appears to be a development on Collett Bridge Road.
Yes, sir.
Does it have a similar topography?
Well, the short answer, I think, is no. Those houses on Collett Bridge Road, the houses to the bottom of the picture, I think they front on the creek. And then there's Collett Bridge Road, and then on the other side of the house, of Collett Bridge Road, they're slightly up a hill. I don't think that any of those houses are visible from the Farley house.
So is your concern the visibility from the Farley house or the visibility from Scottsville Road?
Scottsville Road.
I may have misunderstood.
Scottsville Road.
Okay. And so it is your position that the homes on Collett Bridge Road are not visible from Scottsville Road?
Absolutely are not.
They're not visible
They
from
are
Scottsville
not.
Road?
Now I understand your question. No.
What, just so I'm clear, what obstructs the view of the homes on Collett Bridge Road from Scottsville Road?
No, so I don't misrepresent or misstate something, I think I would defer your question to maybe one of the residents out there, if I could, please.
Sure, no problem. Last question is regarding the Stubb Street. I think I heard the developer say they don't want the Stubb Street. This is one that comes up for us a lot. The zoning ordinance, I'll ask the applicant just to make sure.
Requires.
Would the applicant be willing to remove the Stubb Street if they had that opportunity?
Absolutely.
But we don't have the latitude to remove it, is that correct?
Right, that's a requirement in the subdivision regulation.
And so is it also within the applicant's purview to pick the spot? They get to pick where the Stubb Street is located?
Yeah, that's fair. It's just as long as one is provided.
Okay. So, Mr. Baker, it appears that the Stubb Street is beyond our control here. It is my understanding that we can't take that Stubb Street out. It does come up from time to time. I do believe some, maybe other commissioners could correct me, occasionally fiscal court has removed a Stubb Street, but that's really as far as, I think that's as far as we could go with the Stubb Street. Is that accurate?
So there has been, the most recent one I can think of is when there's an existing Stubb Street already put in to the next proposed development. There has sometimes been a temporary closure of that street until improvements are made to connecting streets. And there has been one instance where they have actually closed an intervening street, but that's in right-of-way that already exists. Nothing exists here. This is creating that.
So am I accurate, I just want to make sure, that we do not have the latitude to remove the Stubb Street? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Does anyone in the audience have a comment to make other than that we've talked about just a minute about compatibility, and is there something different that someone would like to make a different comment, please? Please come to the microphone, sir. State your name and address, please, sir.
Robert Warwick, 8084 Automore Road in Alvaton, right across from this.
You swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get a clear definition of what you mean by substreet. And also, what will happen to Bob Farley's house? I mean, will it be still there during this development, or will it be flattened, or what's going to happen in that area?
I can answer the stub street question, and let me jump back to. So the stub street shown on here, this is just a preliminary plan. So if this were to move forward, maybe the stub street may be located further back. But the purpose of stub streets required by our subdivision regulations is to provide for future connectivity in the event that that property ever develops in the future. Or the adjacent property. It doesn't mean that this property will be developed. It just means that 10, 20, 30 years down the road, never, it could be never, but that if there were a future development, then it would provide interconnectivity between those neighborhoods, more than one way in or out for the purposes of any type of emergency services, such as an ambulance. So let's say the main subdivision entrance was blocked. If this ever developed in the future and there was another entrance from that development, it would just allow emergency vehicles more than one way in or out. School buses, garbage trucks, it reduces mileage on the roadways. And so that's the purpose of the stub street requirement.
So Rachel, just one more clarification. I think it's Mrs. Scott that owns the adjoining property. If Mrs. Scott never develops that property, would there ever be a connecting street there?
No, sir.
So the only way that a street could connect there is if Mrs. Scott chose to develop the property. Is that
That's correct?
Okay. Thank you.
And answer, Rachel, the home that this gentleman asked about, that is the developer's choice whether the home stays or not.
Right. Currently, there's no requirement that it stay, and I don't know. It's not my understanding that it is proposed to remain, but that may be a better question for them. But based on this lot layout, it would not remain.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions besides Stub Street and compatibility? Yes, sir. If you come to the microphone. Yes, sir. If you'd state your name.
Sorry, Ed Petrish, 444 Collett Bridge Road.
Yes, sir. You swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
He asked about why people on Collett Bridge Road can't see Scottsville Road. And there's a small, well, because as they talked, the house is up on a hill. That hill sort of, the topography of the land keeps us from, on Collett Bridge, keeps us from seeing over the small rise, okay?
I see. Thanks for the clarification. Right. From the photo, I just wasn't able to tell. But you're saying it's a difference in topography.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments from anyone in the audience, please? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Scott, you want to state your name?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I am Jo Jean Scott, and I live at 7961 Twin Bridges Road.
You swear to tell the truth?
I do.
All right, you got 3 minutes, Ms. Scott.
For almost 50 years, I've been a resident of 7961 Twin Bridges Road. Yes, back to the time when Scottsville Road was a 2-lane country road and Collett Bridge Road a walnut tree-lined country lane. It's been a pleasure and an opportunity to watch this lovely neighborhood evolve and grow. On both sides of today's 231 highway to Scottsville from 8039 Twin Bridges Road, the driving public can see beautiful homes established each on 2 to 3 to 5 to 7 acres of land. Directly across from 8039 Twin Bridges Road are the lovely areas of September Lakes and Stone Ridge. On the other side of Scottsville Road, along Twin Bridges Road, is our neighborhood and the circling connected neighborhood of Collett Bridge Road. The insertion of 56 houses on 21 acres of land, side by side, each on 1/4 acre of land at 8039 Twin Bridges Road, will bring calamity to the neighborhood of Twin Bridges Road and Collett Bridge Road. The unique character, the compatibility, the integrity, the beauty of the neighborhood that is Twin Bridges Road and Collett Bridge Road will be changed completely. The requested zone change allowing 56 houses to be placed on 21 acres of land at 8039 Twin Bridges Road shows a complete lack of accommodation to the wishes of the members of the existing neighborhood. No regard for the existing character of the Twin Bridges Road and Collett Bridge Road neighborhood, and a huge lack of respect and concern for the environment. Members of the existing neighborhood wish to keep the compatibility of homes along Twin Bridges Road and Collett Bridge Road. These homes have been established over years of time, not shoved together in just a few short months. As a 50-year member of the Bowling Green Garden Club and a 30-year member of the Two Creeks Garden Club, it would be weird if I did not mention the environmental impact that the insertion of 56 houses on 21 acres of land at 8039 Twin Bridges Road would have on the waters and wildlife of Drake's Creek. Rainwater runoff carrying dirt, silt, mud, even cancer-causing chemicals is a real possibility, contaminating the waters of Drake's Creek. The homes and habitats of wildlife along Drake's Creek will most certainly be detrimentally affected. Light pollution at night caused by street lights demanded by 56 houses on 21 acres of land will also be devastating to wildlife along the creek. I respectfully ask that you be environmentally responsible and deny this requested zone change, which will so adversely affect the environment of Drake's Creek, its wildlife, and its waters. We live on a karst landscape. This is a fragile landscape. Huge equipment will be brought to these 21 acres to clear the grass and expose the raw earth. When blasting to make way for 56 houses on 21 acres of land, who knows how many new sinkholes will open up or where they will open. When the weather changes and torrential rains pour on the landscape, where will the rainwater runoff carry mud, dirt, and silt? Eventually to the creek, but first across my land, my property, my home. Mr. Chairman and board members, I am going to be very personal with my next few remarks. If your decision is to grant this requested and extremely incompatible zone change, then before one shovel of sod is turned on the 21 acres of land in jeopardy, I must have an ecological study done by a firm of my choosing. I must know the implications of what is to happen to my house and my land when 60% of these 21 acres is paved over and torrential rainwater runoff comes rushing across my property. Will mud, dirt pile up in my front and backyards? Will blasting on these 21 acres cause the foundations of my house or my neighbors' homes to weaken and crack? Will new sinkholes appear on my property, causing damage to my tractors and farm equipment? What will the placing of 56 incompatible houses as my next-door neighbors do to the value of my land? What will it do to the value of the homes and lands of all the residents of Twin Bridges Road and Collett Bridge Road? These are just a few of the questions troubling my friends and neighbors and me. The answers hang on your decision tonight. My name is Jo Jean Scott, and I am a concerned citizen of Alvaton, Kentucky. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Scott. and the concerns about the environmental. We've talked about compatibility. We've talked about the Stub Street. We have talked about the other houses that have bigger lots with septic. Is there anything else that we have not brought up tonight? It must be something different. We're not trying to cut anybody off. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your name and address?
Davis, 286 Collette Bridge.
Yes, sir.
And I
You
do
swear
swear
to-
to tell the
Thank
truth.
you, sir.
Just one additional thing that it sounds like you guys don't have a great view of this area. You know, they are currently doing construction all up and down Scottsville Road, putting in these R cuts, which is going to change the flow of traffic. So in my opinion, it looks like there's already a congestion issue in that area. You know, we're already having to make adjustments to a 4-lane road to accommodate the current and existing developments that are going on past this area. It looks again like, you know, we are cramming 56 homes in a 21.5 acre area that just don't belong. They just don't belong there. As far as incompatibility and some of those issues, they're obvious. You know, the other things is, how is Collette Bridge and Twin Bridges, they're all going to funnel to one road. And as I see, and I'm not an engineer nor an architect, but it doesn't look like, as the plan goes, we'll be able to make a left turn. So now we're going to have every bit of that traffic coming from Collette Bridge and this new development would have to funnel out, all make a right, go up across another 2 lanes of traffic and make a left, just to get all of us headed back toward, which is Scottsville, you know, Bowling Green and downtown, and go to our jobs and go to work and go to school. So, you know, it just looks like that we're really cramming this in, and the traffic is going to become even worse. If any of you guys have been up and down that area in the last few months, you'll see we've had more accidents, we've had more traffic. You can't get out on the road already. Even with this R cut, I think it's obvious that we do have a congestion issue already in the area. You throw an event down at Fillmore Park and it tenfolds. So you add these houses, which is, you know, within, you know, a 9-iron of Fillmore Park there, you know, you're going to add that much more traffic, many more people into that area. So that's kind of my piece there on that.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate everybody's comments tonight. Well thought out. We've talked about traffic, congestion, compatibility. Is there anything else that anybody else has that is different tonight? Anything different, sir?
My name is Jack Scott. I live at 841 Albemarle Drive in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Mr. Scott, you swear to tell the truth?
I promise to, yes.
Okay.
I am the proud son of Joe Jean Scott and L. Jack Scott. The last point that I would make in this regard is interest. It's accountability and interest. Mr. Patel, who seeks to develop this property, has no interest in this community or this neighborhood, beyond gaining his profits, that is. He will walk away from it with no recourse for the damage that he may cause. And we have no idea what that may be. It may show up immediately, it may show up a year from now, 5 years from now. But the implications are severe. The responsibility for avoiding such egregious behavior, in my view, and our view, really by definition falls to this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, would you come back up just for a second? When you refer to damage, can you be more specific? I want to make sure I understand this.
Say again, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
When you referred to damage, and I want to make sure that I understand, what damage are you referring to?
Well, I think you just kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. When my mother, Jo Jean, spoke about the potential for water runoff going in all directions, the Farley house sits right on a crown. And Mr. Broderick, you don't live on Twin Bridges Road, do you?
No, sir, I do.
Right, okay, so You've driven past it, you've seen the beauty of it, everybody understands the beauty of that neighborhood and that community. But that house, that white house and that white barn sit right on a crown, right? And everything slopes down from it, including the farm I grew up on, the 100 acres that my mom lives on below the Farley property. So when I talk about damage, I'm just talking about, well, what are the implications? It's why my mom asked for an ecological study to gain a better perspective about what the implications might be. Because we can all sit here and say, well, there's no sinkholes, right? There are no sinkholes. Well, the Corvette Museum probably thought there were no sinkholes too. So we just don't know, and that's all we're asking for is to take proper care of, an ecological study to give her proper consideration to what that potentially may mean.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments tonight. Does the applicant have anything else they would like to add? Is there anything different, ma'am? Well, yes, we'll give her all the time she wants. We're asking for something
I won't
different.
need 3 minutes because I
Okay.
haven't really prepared. I'm just angry.
Your name?
My name is Donna Webb. I
Okay.
live at 7281 Twin Bridges Road.
Yes, ma'am.
And I swear to tell the truth,
Thank
the
you,
whole
Ms.
truth,
Webb.
and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Y'all forgot that part. I want to just say, shame on you. I want to just say shame on you. I moved here. I love my home on Twin Bridges Road. And I have grandchildren. I have children and grandchildren. It's a quiet place. It's a beautiful place. And the kids call Twin Bridges Road the happy road. You want to know why? Because when I would turn off the Scottsville Road from Alphaton School and turn onto Twin Bridges Road, I would let them take their seatbelts off because that's a big deal. And they began to call it the happy road. There's other people that have children on these roads. They ride their bicycles. People walk. We walk our dogs and our animals. It's quiet there. It's beautiful there. And what you propose is dirty and ugly. It's ugly. I mean, y'all.
Ma'am.
I'm just saying.
Well,
Okay,
ma'am,
okay.
that's not appropriate.
That's not.
What's not appropriate?
To address the applicant.
Well, they're the ones that are doing it.
Well, ma'am, we're not.
Okay.
We're not.
Okay.
We're not.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just saying. We love our quietness there.
Thank you very much.
And you should come out there. You all should come out there and drive around Collett Bridge Road, drive around Twin Bridges and Collett Bridge Road. Just do that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry I'm angry. I'm a little bit emotional.
Well, we don't attack.
I'm not attacking. I'm voicing opinion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we've heard all the comments tonight. Commissioners, ma'am, is there something different?
Little bit, yes, compared to what she had a little bit of.
Okay.
But I think one of the big things, my
Well,
name is
state your
Sheila
name.
Warwick.
I will. All right, your name?
My name is Sheila Warwick. I
Okay.
live at 8084 Ottomore Road, okay?
Okay.
Right directly across the road.
Okay.
You want to know what's right across the road from the Farley house? It's our driveway,
Okay.
and it goes up the hill.
Okay.
So when we look out, we see the Farley house.
Okay.
Now, if they put in 56 houses in that little area, a fourth of an acre for each house, we're going to see nothing but lights at nighttime,
Okay.
where we have quiet and peace and darkness and deers and raccoons and possums and turkeys and all kinds of wildlife that roam these farms that have been there that God gave us. You know, the one thing that none of us can make any more of is land. We can't do that. But we need to respect the land that God has given us.
Yes, ma'am.
And one of the things that we have out there in Alvaton, and I've only been out there 10 years, but that is, I can see the peacefulness and the quietness and how everybody takes care of each other out there. We are a community. And nobody has mentioned Stone Trace, which is right next to us, and then September Lakes, and then Drake's Ridge. If you go into Stone Trace, none of those houses in there are on anything less than almost 5 acres
Yes, ma'am.
per
Okay.
house.
Sorry. Well, thank you. I think we talked about those. Those were prior to sewer.
Yes,
Okay.
but so was some of September Lakes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And the ambiance is what we're going to lose
Okay.
if 56 houses are shoved together.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So I think we've heard, and not allow anybody to not voice their opinion. I think we've heard all the comments tonight. Does the applicant have anything else they would? Ma'am, is there something different?
It can be a closing comment.
Okay. You state your name and address, please.
Lisa Roberts, 498 Collett Bridge Road.
Okay.
I swear to tell the truth.
Okay.
I think closing comments tonight, I have lived on this road. I am in the corner of Collett Bridge Road. But I've lived there 19 years now. I've rode bikes on this road. I've walked my kids on this road. And to summarize what this is a dead-end, locked-in section of land. It is a
You pull your mask down so we can hear you, please.
Sure. I don't like these anyway. This is a dead end, this is a locked-in section of land. Collett Bridge Road is a dead-end road.
Right.
One way in, one way out.
Okay.
Twin Bridges, dead-end road. One way down to the bridge, and you got one way out. It is a landlocked piece of land. The topography has been talked about over and over and over again. The Farley House is the crown of this property. Like I said, I live in the corner. Our house has a drain in the yard that had to be designed, engineered to let the runoff of Collett Bridge Road not flood the house of my neighbor across the street. And sometimes it doesn't do the best of jobs. So this whole sub-street thing, going to a private piece of property of Miss Jogene, wrong. It has no option to come on Collett Bridge Road because the road can't be widened. It is a private road. It can't be widened because, like I told you, we've got a drain that drains off the waterways right now, and it does not always do the best of jobs. And it has been surveyed by the city of Bowling Green. So this sub-street does not belong on a private property. It does not belong on Collett Bridge Road. So I don't know where that's going to go. That's going to be approved.
Okay, ma'am.
But this is landlocked. This is private property. 56 homes, over 200 cars. You got to think about it, over 200 cars on 56 property.
We've talked about the sub-street. Until Ms. Scott ever sold her property, the sub-street is not open. That's part of the regulations.
So it's not going to go anywhere else in this subdivision, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I think that has to be that has to be understood tonight by everybody. There is no room for that.
Yes, ma'am. We've addressed it a couple times. So,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you.
But then development, I mean, you're going to have runoff.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
From the
Yes, ma'am.
top.
One thing, Commissioner Graham, just before we end, when any piece of property is developed, they have to contain their own water. They cannot run it off on Collett Bridge or on Miss Scott. That is part of our zoning requirements. It can't go to Drake's Creek. It has to be contained on that piece of property. That's our zoning regulations. Thank you very much. Does the applicant have? Okay. Does the applicant have anything else they'd like to add, very, very briefly?
Just closing statements, sir.
Just thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, first to start off with, it's always great. Democracy's grand when everybody gets a chance to say their piece about things. But I would point out that the comprehensive plan, what we call the FLUME now, foresaw that this would be low-density residential area. It would develop that way. That's how we got the 4-lane. That's how we got the sewer. What we have proposed for you tonight is a very nice development. The environmental issues, the water drainage issues will be handled by engineering, will be handled by the Environmental Protection Agency. That won't be a problem, and I would want to assure everybody about that. The traffic issue that's suggested about Collard Bridge Road, we did not go in great detail about what the Kentucky Department of Transportation is doing, but it's my understanding that the traffic from Collard Bridge and from our area at Twin Bridge will go in different directions in terms of where we will go out. So there will not be the congestion that was suggested there. It's our understanding, and that's all I can tell you, and we have passed with the traffic part of it. The houses that we are constructing are of quality material. We're going to have concrete drives. We're going to have our paver drives. We're going to have curbs. We're going to have sidewalks. This is not something that's done without considerable consideration, expense, and appropriate development. We've even talked about a 10-foot buffer. We will have a buffer. Nobody else has a buffer at this point in time. It's interesting because we had people on both sides of the road talk about things, but as you go down Scottsville Road towards Scottsville, you can see the development go even more dense than we suggest. Our housing is compatible with the area. It's compatible with density. It is compatible with the comprehensive plan, and it will be a good development in the area, and we ask you to pass it tonight. Thank you very much.
Broderick. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Broderick? We've heard the testimony tonight. I would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan docket number 2021-58Z CO. Based on the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Mr. Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Drain?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Unseld?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale? Chair Warren?
Yes, ma'am.
Four votes in favor of the motion, 3 votes against the motion. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
So did that just pass? Did that just pass?
Yes.
That just passed?
It passed with.
Okay.
It passed with opposition.
I just didn't understand what happened. I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
So
It will, and just for the audience's information, this will go to fiscal court, Warren County Fiscal Court, for final approval. And that is the next step. So if there is opposition.
So as the chair indicated, this is not an approval, this is a recommendation to the fiscal court. So you're going to get an opportunity to voice your concerns to the fiscal court prior to final approval. And so it did pass with opposition.
When will that be?
So, no, so it'll be up to the fiscal court when they put it on their docket. They have to hear it within, is it 90 days, that's right. It's 90 days of the action from tonight. So when we have our next planning commission meeting, which is November 18th, the minutes will be approved from this meeting. Then we will be forwarding all of this to the fiscal court to put on their document. So it's likely will be around the first meeting. Could be the last meeting they have in November, but most likely the first meeting in December.
And that would,
first reading, they have 2 readings.
and that'll be advertised, correct?
It will just be notice of their agenda items. It's not an advertisement, it's not a public hearing like this, because that's what this body does. It will just be on the fiscal court agenda, but you can file a notice of appeal, an opposition to the fiscal court, and then the fiscal court can do typically one of two things. They'll either have a hearing on the record, will rehear the evidence, rehear some of the comments they had tonight. They could choose not to have a hearing. Most of the time they don't. Most of the time they will allow the comments to be heard. So it's typically one of those two items. But you would contact the fiscal court clerk to find out for sure.
The people that voted no, I want to say thank you. The people who voted yes, shame on you. Shame on you. I hope it doesn't come to your house. I hope he doesn't come to your house.
Ma'am.
I'm not going to stop. Don't tell me to stop. Please stop.
Sorry.
Don't tell me to stop. I'm angry.
All right, would you all like to take about a 5-minute break before we hear our last? Is 2021-59Z County. The Wilson Family Trust and Mike Heimer have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 61.66 acres located at 0 Scottsville Road abutting Burford Lane and located approximately 5.55 miles from Mount Lebanon Road from Ag to RS1B Single Family Residential with the General Development Plan. Mr. Zach.
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-app on September the 8th for the property you see here outlined in yellow. The existing zoning is agriculture, ag. The existing land use is ag, or agriculture, and the future land use is low-density residential. That is the RS1B zone is listed as a potentially compatible zoning designation in the low-density residential flume category. If you'll flip over onto your, excuse me, I did it again, 61 acres in order to develop the property with a maximum of 157 single-family residential lots. Now if you flip onto your second page, you've got your future land use map, low-density residential category description there. Under site characteristics review, I can go over any of these things that you like, but there's a couple I want to draw attention to. In particular, the water adequacy and wastewater adequacy, and that the property is served by Warren County Water and is provided with less than adequate flow and pressure for RS1B development. But if this application is approved, upgrades to the existing infrastructure will be required in order to comply with the minimum fire protection requirements. Similarly, wastewater adequacy, this property is not located within 2,000 feet of sewer. However, the applicants are proposing with this development, as they would have to with the RS1B zone, to extend the sewer to the property beyond the current connection threshold within 2,000 feet in order to provide sewer to the development. Moving on down to site design compatibility review. A few things I'll touch on. Again, I can elaborate on anything you guys want, but surrounding density, I'll note that we do have an attached density map here for your reference. Densities in the surrounding area range from 0.1 to 3.18 dwelling units per acre, and the density of the proposed development is 2.55 dwelling units per acre. Down, you'll see the surrounding architectural features that the majority of the surrounding area is comprised of 1- and 2-story single-family homes. Minimum home sizes for existing and approved residential developments in the vicinity include 1,600 square foot minimum in Breckenridge with a minimum 2-car attached garage, and Bonetta Meadows, 2,200 square feet with a minimum 2-car garage required. And that subdivision, they require that accessory buildings are no taller than 1 story. Under the building materials review, again, Breckenridge, 75% brick, stone, drive-it, cement, siding, man-made stone, or other modern masonry material, with plain face block prohibited, and accessory buildings must incorporate the same material as the primary structure. And in Bonetta Meadows, 75% of the lots shall have homes constructed of 80% brick, stone, wood, concrete siding, or EIFS, with no more than 25% utilizing vinyl siding, and that the accessory buildings would be complementary of the same materials as the main residence there as well. Under building orientation, the applicants have indicated it's their preference that the homes, you can see in the concept there, that the homes be oriented to face the new internal streets and screening be provided from Scottsville Road. However, there is no requirement in the DPCs to address such screening. The applicants agreed to maintain all existing trees around the perimeter of the development which have a caliper of 8 inches or greater and are located within 10 feet of the property line, but this only addresses preservation of a portion of the existing vegetation along Scottsville Road and not the existing gaps in the current tree line. Moving on, we'll go to the area-specific policy review. We'll touch on each of these items here. Number 1 was a requirement that all development visible from Scottsville Road be designed in such a way to appear to face Scottsville Road regardless of the location of the driveways and the parking, and that the homes located within the future development are proposed to be oriented towards the internal streets, but the proposal does not comply with that recommendation. Number 2 is a requirement that new residential development be served by internal streets, and the proposal does comply with that recommendation. Number 3, request for a building material requirement for residential facades, for residential and non-residential developments and for facades facing Scottsville Road. And then they agreed to that in DPC number 6, and the Planning Commission should determine compliance with that recommendation, and I will, in the sake of brevity, just read that one time on the next page. And then number 4, an open/green space or greenways connection requirement for the new development. The applicants did not address that specifically, but they did agree to construct sidewalks on both sides of the street within the development, and the Planning Commission should determine compliance with that recommendation. Looking down to the general development plan conditions. Number 1, the property will be developed with a maximum of 157 residential building lots. Number 2, each residence within the development will have a minimum of 1,800 square feet of heated living space exclusive of porches or garages. Number 3, each residence will have a minimum 2-car attached garage with an 18-foot wide concrete driveway. Number 4, no building will exceed 2 stories in height. Number 5, builders shall plant a minimum of 2 trees in the front yard on each new lot. Number 6, exteriors of all structures will consist of vinyl, brick, stone, drive-it, cement-based siding, man-made stone, or other modern masonry materials, and also including engineered wood siding such as LP Smart siding. You might notice in your packet that did not originally include the engineered wood siding, but you guys should have an updated set of DPCs that shows that. Number 7, all new utility lines will be located underground. Number 8 deals with uniform street lighting throughout the property. Number 9 has to deal with the community mailbox system. Number 10 deals with the existing trees that I mentioned a moment ago, with a caliper of 8 inches or greater located within 10 feet of the property line being maintained during development and construction. Number 11 has to do with lots from internal streets, having entrances from internal streets with only one access to Scottsville Road, and that the existing access shall be utilized and a right turn lane shall be installed on Scottsville Road into the development. Such turn lane shall be coordinated and approved by KYTC, and that satisfies the traffic impact study requirement, which we'll touch on in just a second. Number 12 has to deal with sinkholes being repaired in a methodology approved by the Warren County Public Works Department. Number 13 deals with development plan conditions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, remaining development plan conditions only until a subdivision plat is recorded, and then they'll become plat restrictions. Number 14 deals with the construction of 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street within the development. And then again, back to that traffic impact study as required by 3.1.4 of the zoning ordinance. Warren County Public Works and KYTC were both consulted as part of this development. No improvements were required by Warren County Public Works. KYTC waived their right to a traffic impact study in lieu of a commitment from the applicants, again, that the existing access to Scottsville Road be utilized for the subdivision entrance and a right turn lane be installed on Scottsville Road into the development. And those, again, are in DPC number 11. Under your Focus 2030 category review, 18 items were marked by staff, 6 comply. 12 of which are up to the Planning Commission. LU 1.1.1, 1.1.2, and 1.1.3 deal with compatibility with the flume and the low density residential category, and if the proposal is compatible with the surrounding area. LU 2 and LU 2.1, and the Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is high quality development that will protect the character. LU 2.1.1, the applicants have not addressed open space within the proposed development, but they did agree to install those sidewalks that I mentioned a moment ago in DPC 14, and it may comply with that policy. The application may comply with 2.1.4, PR 1.7, and NCR 1.1.6 because the applicants did agree in DPC number 10 to that requirement to protect the trees around the perimeter of the property. And then they agreed in DPC number 5 to plant a minimum of 2 trees per lot. The proposal does comply with LU 2.3.1 and TR 2.1 because they agreed to the improvements in DPC number 11 and that the development will be served by internal streets. The Planning Commission should determine compliance with LU 2.8. And again, going back to that building material requirements, the application complies with one but not all of the recommendations outlined on page 3 of the report. The proposal complies with NCR 1.1 and NCR 1.3 because the applicants did include considerations for sinkholes in DPC 12. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development will preserve and enhance the agricultural landscape and viewshed along Scottsville Road, and if it complies with NCR 2.4. And the Planning Commission should determine if the extension of sewer beyond the 2,000 feet threshold triggered by zoning ordinance and upgrades to the existing water availability will result in premature development on the countryside, and if the application complies with NCR 2.4.1. And then the Planning Commission should lastly determine compliance with the HN 2.1 and HN 4, which deals with the suitability of the housing type in the area. We want to flip back to page 1 to the points to consider. Number 1, the proposed RS1B zone complies with the low-density residential flume category. Number 2, the proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria and meets the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. Number 3, that the proposed general development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design, with considerations noted regarding open space and screening of side and rear-facing facades along Scottsville Road. Number 4, the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed density achieved by extending sewer is premature development of the countryside and compatible with the rural corridor beyond the Alvaton community. Number 5, compatibility should be determined by the Planning Commission. That's all I've got for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for Zach?
Zach, let me just ask real quick.
Sir.
I don't understand why the odd number houses will be brick. Do I understand that?
Why the odd number of houses would be brick? No. Oh, I see. All odd number lots shall be a minimum of 80% brick. I'll let the applicants touch a little bit more on why they included that in particular in the application.
Any other questions for Mr. Jones? Thank you, Mr. Volker. Thank you, Zach.
Sir.
All right. Is the applicant here? Mr. Heimer, will you state your name and address, please, sir?
Mike Heimer, 2681 Dyford Road, Alvaton, Kentucky.
Swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to say I feel for y'all. Y'all have a tough job.
Well, you heard? Did you hear Mr. Volkert's question?
Do what?
Did you hear Mr. Volkert's question?
Mr. Heimer, why are the odd number lots going to be 80% brick?
We was going to do 80%. We normally do 80% brick because only the gables they'll use vinyl, so you don't have to brick off in the gables. But we did odd and even. We came up with a decision trying to decide how to do part vinyl and part brick. So we said, Lucas said, well, just do odd lots brick and even lot numbers vinyl or stone, whatever you want to do.
Let me ask you this: with the other things around this development that were mentioned earlier, and then as you saw the thing that we had done just a little while ago, would you be okay with just 75% non-vinyl? For all?
75% of the total lots you're talking about?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a big deal.
Okay.
They're going to be, a $300,000 range.
Yeah, and that's why
houses.
I think
Yeah.
that would be appropriate.
I think it would.
that would be
Yeah.
appropriate for that neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Could we, I'm sorry, could,
Yes. Brick, stone, I mean, all the other things, non-vinyl.
Modern masonry.
On vinyl, yeah, there you go. But those particular 75% would still only be 80% brick, because, most of the houses, you got gables on the front,
Sure,
and you don't
absolutely,
do gable,
absolutely.
you'll do
Absolutely, it's okay.
25% vinyl on those particular ones. yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there other questions, Tim? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heimer. Is there anyone in the audience that has opposition to this request, please? Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioners would call for a motion, please, sir. Please, sir or ma'am.
make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan, docket number 2021-59Z County, based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Mr. Houchins, are you here on behalf of the property owner?
Yes, sir, I am.
And do you agree to the amended binding elements that we recited with Mr. Heimer a moment ago? And that is that 75% of the lots would be constructed of non-vinyl?
Yes, sir. 80%.
Joe, would you state your name and address, please, sir?
Name is Joe B. Houchins, 1016 Boone Court, Bowling Green, and I do swear to tell the truth.
And so, Joe, you are representing the Wilsons?
Yes, we presented the commission with a power of attorney. They live partially during the year in Alaska. Very difficult trip for them to come back and forth. And Bobby's having some health issues, so they've asked me to represent them here tonight.
So you agree to what Mr. Morse
I do
just said?
agree,
Thank
and they
you.
would agree. Yes.
Thank you, Joe. No, thank you, Counselor. That's why we have you here.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Unseld,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved and will be recommended to Warren County Fiscal Court. Is there any new business items tonight,
Sir.
Ben?
No, sir.
Any discussion items?
Just mention, remind everybody, there's no meeting November 4th. We did not have any items submitted for that meeting, so that meeting is canceled. The only other thing I'll mention is just you should start seeing information come out about our comprehensive plan update. We're still working on some details there, but we're obviously going to try to involve as many of you all and elected officials and the public as possible as we review the comprehensive plan, use it as much as an education session, hopefully as well as taking a look and see if there's any changes we need to be made. Don't expect any major changes necessarily, though some may come up. I'm not saying we won't change it, but if some come up, we will. We will probably have some suggestions for the future land use map amendments, and there'll probably be some other things, but we'll discuss all that. Plan on it being about a year-long process, kind of take one piece at a time every month until we get through it all and see where it goes. And of course, we'll be flexible with that and adjust to what works and what doesn't, and trying to think of ways to be a little more creative with hopefully fixing to get rid of some COVID restrictions that may give us some more options. So just wanted to let you all know that that's coming up.
Ben, I just have one more request. We have some new commissioners, and maybe if we could send out a memo to all of our commissioners about our continuing education and where everybody is, because it hadn't been sent, just for everybody's FYI, because we have new people, and we just want to be in compliance with all of our regulations, because we receive, hey, here's a potential CE option, but sometimes if we're not prompted.
Sure. We'll absolutely do that. We'll give you an update of where you're at, how many hours you have left to get. We do have another online option that that has come to our attention that will have a variety of other things to look at. And then we'll, if you have any questions about any of that, once we send that, please
I just think
ask
it would
us.
be helpful, because we don't want to, if there was ever a question, as we discussed about 2 years ago, if somebody said, well, our commission's not up to date, that we don't have to.
We do keep up with that, keep track of that. We typically let you know about that, but we'll definitely send that and send you some more training opportunities.
Thank you.
And as a lot of you all have different professions, that any training you go for those can also count towards that too, some of those training hours. So we'll just send that email out and summarize that for you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ben. I think that would be helpful for everybody. Hearing no other items tonight, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.